Hey guys, we are ready to talk about the Comey testimony that happened today. I'm Kristen Howerton. I write at Rage Against the Minivan.
And I'm Paul Martin. I write at Sophia.
Paul and I are old friends and political junkies, and we come from different sides of the aisle. I am a Democrat.
I am a Republican.
Although that has proved difficult in this season, hasn't it?
It's proved different. I'm disillusioned with my party.
Yeah.
But I'm hanging in there.
Well, today, I've got to say, was not a great day for your party. Not a great day.
I haven't, debriefed on, I don't know how I feel. How many of you watched the hearing today? How many of you watched Comey and the Senate go at it? Send us your comments. We want to hear from you. We have a loose format today, but we're all intrigued with what's happening with this investigation and with Donald Trump and with this Russia issue.
Well, I watched part of it. I was kind of trying to watch it and work at the same time because it went on for a very long time.
Almost 3 hours.
Let's catch everybody up. If they don't know what is happening with the Comey situation, let's give a quick little tutorial of what is happening today, what the significance of today was.
Yeah, so, Comey was the head of the FBI, and he was fired. Mm-hmm. He was investigating the fact that the Russians interfered with the last election, mm-hmm. and he was investigating possible collusion, Trump's guys helping out or aligning themselves with the Russians, mm-hmm. and today it was made clear that Trump basically tried to get Comey to stop doing the investigation, mm-hmm. And Comey wouldn't, and he was subsequently fired.
Right.
That's really hard. The things about this, well, one thing I'm realizing that a lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to this. I'm realizing more and more. So if you're one of those people that just doesn't watch the news every night, mm-hmm. the bottom line is that the Russians definitely interfered with our election.
Which, I feel like it's easy to kind of gloss over that and talk about the facts of the testimony, but let's just back up for a minute and let that sink in. Russians interfered with our democratic process. Yeah. The thing that we all, Republicans, Democrats, hold dear in this country. The right to vote, the right to choose our own president, the right to choose the president as citizens without undue influence from third parties, particularly Russia, who does not have our best interests in mind. So this is a big deal that this happened. And it definitely looks like it happened. And then, not only did it happen, our president is basically interfering with an investigation into the fact that it happened. So this is a shit show.
Yeah, it is, and I think that's where that there isn't more outrage. And again, mm-hmm. I am a lifelong Republican. That's my party. I'm trying to stay in it. I like what Colin Powell said before the election. He said something like, I'm disillusioned with my party. And I would say that I'm in that camp, but I still remain a Republican. But what concerns me is this is a fact. 16 intelligence agencies concluded, and Comey verified today, it's an indisputable fact, that from Vladimir Putin all the way down, mm-hmm. that we got hacked, and the intention of their efforts were to mess with our democracy. Right. They definitely wanted Trump to win, not Hillary, for mm-hmm. other reasons. Mm-hmm. And what's weird is that isn't the big subject. Even today, that wasn't the big subject. Mm-hmm. And in Trump's 3 or 4 months of being a president, he's attacked Germany, he's attacked England, he's attacked France, he's attacked virtually every major country except Russia. Yeah. And so it begs a question of what the hell is going on? Why is he unable to bring himself to a point of saying one thing negative about Russia? And I think whether you're a Republican or Democrat, it doesn't really matter. It's weird.
It's weird. And it's I think that we've discussed our opinion on why, and it's because he has vested interest financially in what's happening in Russia. And so this is really all about, again, we have a man in power who is more interested in maintaining his personal wealth than the security and safety of our country. And again, this should not be a partisan issue. We should all be outraged. And I will say, I mean, having watched the testimony today, well, first of all, I want to say that objectively, I thought Comey seemed integrous. I thought that he seemed professional. I felt a lot of compassion for him watching it. He felt like a man who was torn. He seemed like a man who wanted to do the right thing and was put in a horrible and terrible situation. Now, here's where I feel a little pissed at your party, Paul. I felt like this was a huge, victim blaming session. So, and a lot of women on Twitter today were likening it to when a woman is questioned after having sexual harassment of why didn't you do anything? Why didn't you say anything? And so I was really frustrated by that line of questioning that many Republican leaders put towards him, because I do think he was a man in an impossible situation. And I think he was really in a moral dilemma about what to say and who to say it to and when to say it. And as he said, a part of the reason that he didn't go to authorities or the press or whoever you go to in a situation like this is because there was an ongoing investigation. And so when there's an ongoing investigation, you can't go blab about it. You can't go talk about it. And so he was trying to keep his hands clean so he could not later be accused of having, interfered in this process by speaking up. So that's why he didn't say anything. But I thought it was really unflattering and lacking in integrity that so many Republicans went on that instead of, again, being outraged that this is happening. It just became a public skewering of Comey today.
Yeah,
and attempted.
I
think he held his own.
It was fairly civil.
Yeah, but
I mean, you're right.
Well, McCain
was just needed to take his meds or something wrong with him.
Off.
But there were Republican efforts, but it was, generally speaking, there were never any very intense moments. But I totally agree with you that if you watch cable news tonight, you're going to hear. I spent a lot of time today watching CNN and listening to the Trump surrogates on CNN, and they keep going back to how Comey handled it. But Comey was fairly humble, and he even said, at one point a senator said, well, why didn't you just confront the president and say, you can't do this?
Right.
And Comey said, well, maybe if I was a man of bigger courage, I would have. I think I was just in shock.
Yeah.
But why should that be the issue?
Right. Again, it's
the big issue is that Russia interfered in our election. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
And why isn't Trump using his platform over the last 4 months to get to the bottom of that? And the fact of the matter is that there's a cover-up. There's absolutely no question in my mind whatsoever that there is a cover-up, because if there wasn't a cover-up, you would have full compliance with the Trump administration. There wouldn't be hiding, there wouldn't be ducking, there wouldn't be trying to get Comey to give up investigating Michael Flynn. There wouldn't be Trump saying there's this cloud of my presidency, will you make it go away? There's no compliance right now from the White House, and this thing just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And regardless of how Comey has handled it, it's almost irrelevant.
It is irrelevant.
Because this issue will not go away until we find out what happened.
Yeah, it's irrelevant, and yet it became a focal point. Okay, so what happened with John McCain today? I have always thought, well, with Sarah Palin, that choice being an exception, I've always thought that John McCain was a reasonable person. He has been reasonable throughout the Trump fiasco over the last year and a half. He has seemed to maintain his integrity, and yet today he was just full party line and grumpy and off, and that was odd. His behavior was odd.
I honestly believe, and he said later, maybe I shouldn't have stayed up so late watching some baseball game. I honestly think he didn't take his meds. Because he was trying to make a comparison. He's pressuring Comey and saying, why did you end the Hillary investigation, but this one isn't ended yet? And it made no sense. It literally made no sense.
Well, right. I mean, he's trying to create some false equivalency, but they are not the same thing at all.
Yeah, and Comey's is obviously, this investigation is just getting started. And that's something, like, for some of you that aren't geeks like us, This thing is just getting started.
And these things take a very long time.
Yeah, between the beginning of Nixon's investigation and his resignation was 2 years.
Right.
And so we're just
This is a long game.
Yeah, it's a long game. And that's probably, to me, I mean, it's frustrating, and I think as a country that's already frustrated with the 9/11, the war in Iraq, which most people, eventually we found out it was not a good thing, the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, this crazy political season that we've had for 2 years, and now we're going to have this investigation that goes on for a while. And I don't think it's anybody's fault. As a Republican, I don't think this is anybody's fault, meaning I don't think it's a partisan issue. I think it's an issue of an outside entity interfering with our election, and for some reason an administration. I don't, as a Republican, claim Trump as one of my own. And so it's just another unfortunate situation that the country's going to be dragged through. This thing is not going away.
You know, it's interesting. You said not claiming him as your own, and one of the things I think it's man, I can't remember if it was the Canadian Prime Minister or France, but he began using the term the American administration as if to separate and acknowledge that he sees that this current administration does not really represent America, which I'm glad that globally people are recognizing now, because it does not represent me or you or most people.
There's a base of Trump supporters.
Yeah, there is a base.
And he's speaking to them. There are commercials today going out that are castigating Comey as some kind of liar and traitor, and they're raising money right now on cable news.
The irony there is that there are many who believe that Comey won Trump his election because
that's what's just
he had the whole last leak of
the 10 days before the election.
Hillary emails. That was
the October
Comey.
surprise.
That was Comey, and so there are many who blamed Comey for Hillary's loss.
And that's
why,
the
irony here.
Totally. And that's why, to my Republican friends, the problem with the binary black and white thinking, if you're for Trump, you're good. If you're against Trump, you're bad. The problem with that are a few. You just mentioned one. Comey was the one to release, and it was the most ridiculous thing that he brought up Hillary's emails with 10 days to go. And I'm a Republican.
Yeah.
He just found out that Huma Abedin's husband had some emails on his laptop. It was there was no reason. There's a protocol.
Nothing relevant. Except everyone going, her emails again.
But the Democrats were cheering Comey, and Trump literally said he did a great job. So there's that. Comey's a lifelong Republican.
Right.
He's been a Republican his entire life.
Right.
And so people that are trying to castigate Comey here, Republicans that are trying to say that Comey's, it's just pathetic.
Yeah,
and if you would have heard his opening statement, did you hear his opening statement?
I didn't.
I mean, I copied some of it, and it was one of those moments where I just kind of got goosebumps, and maybe I'm a little bit goofy that way, but Comey said this in the beginning. He says, the administration then chose to defame me. That's after Trump fired him. Defame me. And more importantly, the FBI, by saying that the organization was in disarray, that it was poorly led, that the workforce had lost confidence in its leader. Those were lies, plain and simple. And later, Comey said, I was honestly concerned that Trump, might lie about the nature of our meeting. And so I thought it really important to document it, he said. And when he said that, you just got this sense of, this is a public servant.
It is. I felt that. A lifelong
public servant.
Republican, lifelong public servant. And this is where I think Republicans have they need to have a real come to Jesus meeting, because, he is a lifelong Republican. He is a man of integrity. He is a public servant. And if this man has this many concerns about Trump, it's like, I feel like the Republican allegiance should be with Comey. He showed himself today to be a man of integrity.
And I guess strategically, the way this is working, unfortunately, is that Trump is going to continue to say things that make his ardent Trump supporters happy.
Yeah. Well, he's going to play victim.
Yeah.
And they love that. And, I mean, it's just, we keep asking, when is the point? When is the point that, people who support him are going to be fed up and say that it's enough, and the point is never, apparently. You know, it's gonna get down to just he's breaking the law.
Well, I mean, we don't know yet, but with Robert Mueller and this new investigation, the power that this new committee has, is remarkable. And it's, you know, right now Trump isn't speaking. We noticed today that there were no tweets. It's interesting in his press conferences now, even his own people are not. It's really weird. Like yesterday, they asked Sarah Huckabee if Trump had confidence in Jeff Sessions, because there was a report that the Attorney General Jeff Sessions offered his resignation to Trump because Trump's not happy with him. And the question to Sarah Huckabee was basically, does Trump have the confidence of the Attorney General? Oh, this is Sean Spicer. And Sean Spicer said, I don't know. I haven't asked the president. The reporters are saying, wait, does the President of the United States have confidence in his Attorney General?
Yeah. And
Spicer again said, I haven't asked him that question. So it's getting to the point. The climate change thing happened too, which we haven't talked about. But with climate change, they've been asking him, does the president believe in global warming? And basically, his surrogates, the people that work for him, are saying, well, we haven't had a chance to ask him yet. So it's getting wackier and wackier and wackier because you would think he'd have policy positions on these issues, and these people are walking on eggshells, not able to speak freely and say, well, of course he has. With Sessions, the reason they're saying that this is complicated, but the reason that the spokespeople aren't saying that he has confidence in Sessions is, remember that like the day before Flynn got fired, Kellyanne Conway came out and said the president has full confidence in General Flynn, and then he was fired 10 hours later. And so now nobody is willing to say that the Attorney General has the confidence of the president. This is
he
weird.
Wants the option to fire him
this is
tomorrow.
The weirdest thing
so weird.
Ever.
Okay, I want to talk about the climate change thing, but let's talk really quickly about the Trump administration's response to Comey's testimony today, because that was bizarre too. I mean, that was some narrative spinning if I've ever seen it. Okay, you want me to read this?
You can. That was his attorney.
This is what Trump's attorney said in response to the Comey hearing. Now, let me just point out, if you didn't watch it, I thought that the most dramatic part, and we should talk about this, was at the very beginning. He was asked very pointed questions. Do you have any doubt that the Russians interfered with our election? And he said unequivocally, I have no doubt. There were like 5 questions. A number of questions where it was just straight to the point, like we're going to just get right down to it. The Russians interfered with our election.
It was like, we're not going to talk about this anymore. That's already been established by 16 agencies.
And so we have, again, Trump's administration going, look over here, to try to get the American people to stop paying attention. And, you know, it's just the smoke and mirrors. It's the red herrings. And the thing is, it continues to work. Because this is what his fans are going to be talking about. But this is what his administration said. Contrary to numerous false press accounts leading up to today's hearing, Mr. Comey has now finally confirmed publicly what he repeatedly told the President Trump privately. That is, the president was not under investigation as part of any probe into Russian interference. He also admitted there is no evidence that a single vote changed as a result of any Russian interference. That's not what this was about today. That's not what's on trial.
And I watched that. And what's interesting now, too, is Trump has counsel. So, 3 weeks ago, Trump would have tweeted or Sean Spicer would have come out. Now they have set up a protocol. Trump has a lawyer, a slick New York lawyer, who is now the person speaking on behalf of Trump.
Someone took his cell phone away.
Someone took his cell phone away for now.
Okay, wait. Sorry to go off on a rabbit trail.
No, that's what we do.
I want to talk really quickly about the role of Twitter in this testimony. Because Comey talked about how he saw on Twitter, and this is leading up into the controversy about whether or not he leaked. But he saw on Twitter that Trump had said, Comey better have tapes. And then what did he do in response to that?
And again, we hate to read, but for those of you that didn't watch it, basically the way this goes is that, so Comey took notes, right? He's meeting with president. The president's saying, "Give me your allegiance." Comey's like, "What the hell?"
Because when you're in a relationship with a narcissist who likes to twist facts, you take notes.
And it's unprecedented for an FBI director to meet alone with the president. The FBI, by definition, is meant to be an impartial agency that does not. So the very fact that Trump wanted to meet with him and met with him again was a big red flag. And I don't know if we want to go into the weeds of this, but basically, Trump ends up tweeting. Comey says this. The president tweeted on Friday, after I got fired, that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night because it didn't dawn on me originally that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And so basically what Comey does is he takes his notes that he wrote after each meeting with Trump. He gave them to a friend who's a professor at Columbia Law School, and he basically said, get these out to the media.
Right.
Because Comey's thinking that...
Now, these are his notes.
These are his notes.
So I want to point out that there's not really... This is not a leak, as people are trying to paint it, because you can't leak your own notes.
Yeah, and these weren't...
that's not a leak.
Yeah, these weren't security.
Right.
These weren't done under the cone.
It wasn't tapes, right.
Yeah.
Like, this was a non-secure meeting, and it's his own notes on the meeting. He's not leaking Trump's notes or emails. He's putting his own
he's just giving a recollection.
Notes out.
Yeah, a recollection. And there was a lot of debate as to whether he did that the right way or the wrong way, or whether he should have immediately reported it or not. And he was very humble about it. He said, maybe I did it the wrong way, but I just knew there was something very fishy when the president of the United States is telling me to stop a criminal investigation against the former national security advisor. I just felt it was weird. And so the Trump administration now is trying to make the fact that Comey released those notes to a friend to go out to the media, they're trying to make that the issue.
Right.
So this whole time,
again,
if you don't follow this, if you don't follow this, there is more, like Kristen's saying, smoke and mirrors and look over here happening. But what's not happening is the Trump administration is not saying that Vladimir Putin and the Russians interfered with our elections. They broke into our democracy. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, they are an enemy and they are meddling with our democracy. You do not hear that from Trump's people.
Right.
You hear everything else. Scapegoating, blaming, justification, victimization.
The correct response, if he's going to come out and talk to the media about what just happened, the correct response is, I am outraged at the possibility that Russia interfered with our election. That's the correct response. That is the patriot response.
Yeah.
And that's what this whole, he ran on a platform of integrity and patriotism and democracy and make America great again. That would be the response of that platform. But, I think his platform is a little bit...
Yeah, someone named Melanie is saying, there was collusion, all right, with Hillary in Russia.
Okay.
All right. Plain and simple. Comey knew this. That's why he shot himself in the foot. Well, that, Melanie, respectfully, is against what 16 security agencies, including the FBI, the CIA, the NIH, are talking about. They're not talking about Hillary. They're talking about Russia interfering in the election by stealing information from the DNC, which was unfavorable to Hillary because Hillary was not a fan of Russia and Trump was. So, that's interesting, but it's really weird, if I'm honest.
Well, I think it's an example of red herrings, I think that...
Russia is not our enemy. They're the enemy of the progressives. Oh, and Europe. By the way, the progressives and Europe. Ask the people in Ukraine and Crimea what they think about Trump. Yeah. Anyway, I'll move on from that.
And our allies. Okay, let's talk about this whole climate change thing.
Well, the Paris Accord was a bunch of countries, 195 or so, that got together and said, we want to make the world cleaner. It's in everyone's interest to make it cleaner. And the short of it is they let each country set their own goals.
Right.
And this was a big thing. It took 10 years to get countries like China and India, some of these countries that you've been to finally realize that, climate change, or whatever you want to call it, pollution is a bad thing. And it took us 10 years to finally get this agreement with 195 countries. Yeah. That's like literally 90% of the countries in the world.
Yeah.
And then Trump decided last week or the week before that, we want to get out of that.
Right.
And
which, regardless of the whole climate change thing, is horrible, horrible public relations. You know, I mean, when you have alliances with other countries, when you want to be a peaceful nation globally, you don't just thumb your nose at these, you know, hard-won agreements with other countries. And it seems like he continues to do that. Like, he has no respect for the alliances that, you know, we have created over the years, with the exception of, you know, whatever weird respect he keeps paying to Russia. But, you know, so the fact that he pulled out of this, setting climate change aside, it's just horrible global relations.
Yeah, I don't really understand the nuances and the intricacies of it, but there were a lot of moderate Republicans. There's this sense of, I remember that idea of a zero-sum game. Mm-hmm. The idea of it's either win-win, it's either win-lose or lose-win.
Yeah. And
you see that dualism in how Trump operates.
Yeah.
We're America. We're going to make America great. Well, you guys aren't all America, so what are we doing with you?
Yeah.
So we're out. We're doing this on our own. And we see that over and over, and
Yeah.
it plays into his base, which is largely comprised of red state people who've never left the country, in all due respect. And so there's idea that the French are bad, and there are a bunch of liberals, and these Europeans are all liberal, wishy-washy liberals, and God forbid we could actually create a win-win situation where our globe, because we are one in terms of being on one planet, but he blows the whole thing up, and I think he feels good about it.
I do too. I think he showed his ideology on this one, and his ideology is America first, screw everyone else. You know, and he even said, you know, in his when he was talking about the decision, he said something about maintaining America as a sovereignty, which, I mean, really, like, are we sovereign over other countries? But you know, it just ties back into his nationalism and
it's nationalism and populism, and you know, we have these terrorist attacks in London. We're kind of going off the subject a little bit, but this is another classic example. So there's a terrorist attack in London, and there's another one, and typically what leaders do, because we were all united, even Russia is united with us, even Jordan and Saudi Arabia. There was a terrorist attack in Iran, for God's sakes. These countries believe that ISIS and the way that they indiscriminately murder people, we're all together on that. So there's this terrorist attack in London, and what does Trump do? He attacks the Muslim mayor of London. And we had Orlando, we had San Bernardino, we had Brussels, we had Paris, we had, you know, we have all these cities that have been attacked, and never once did Trump attack the mayor of any of those cities, because they were all white. But there is a city where there's not a white mayor, there is a Muslim mayor, and Trump attacks this guy. I went on social media and actually put the video up of this Muslim mayor condemning the attack in words that could not be more clear.
So clear.
And yet it's another one of these black and white things that he thinks.
Well, and then he parsed the mayor's words, because the mayor basically said, you know, we are taking this absolutely seriously, but we want our citizens to go about and
calm.
feel safe and secure. But
he
prior
took
to that,
sentence,
he said, we're taking it very seriously, and we're beefing up. So Trump took just that very last thing. Now, first of all, it's just human decency. When there's a tragedy and someone has died, you know, a child drowns in a pool, that is not the moment to walk up and talk to the mother about pool safety. You know, you have some empathy first. And, you know, he completely lacked empathy. More victim blaming, you know? And then just, I mean, what is his motivation in trying to make it look like this mayor is weak?
Yeah, I think his motivation is political. I think it plays into his narrative that he's tried to create for 2 years now, which essentially says that Muslims are bad, and you know, we're good, they're bad. And so since you have a Muslim mayor, it's easy for him to accuse the mayor. It goes on to Fox News. His supporters think, that bad mayor. And I do a lot of work with Muslims myself, and it was one of the most vile,
it's so
lacking diplomacy. This is not about Republicans or Democrats. This is not about winning or losing. We all are appalled by these attacks, whether they be attacks against whites or blacks or Muslims or anything else. If you have a heart, but to go after the mayor,
And it just makes us look terrible as a country. You know, it makes us look so bad.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to be represented by someone who talks like that.
Yeah. That's what we're dealing with.
I feel like Trump is continually talking about public safety, security, but when you behave like that, you lose your allies. And allies are a huge part of our security and safety, you know? It's like having the dad that keeps picking fights with everybody. You know, you're not going to be super safe out on the baseball field if your dad keeps, like, harassing the umpire. Like, you know, I just don't get it. I don't get it.
Except for Russia.
Except for
Picking
Russia.
fights with Germany, Australia, England, everyone, except for Russia.
If I'm a total bitch to all my neighbors and then I get robbed, nobody's going to be caring. You know, a part of it being in a community is that you're kind to people when they're in need, you know, so that you have people watching your back later. And I don't know who's watching our back at this point. I mean, if I were a foreign leader, I wouldn't be.
Yeah, we're in, we're not even talking the Russia issue now, but there doesn't seem to be any sense. I mean, Trump's agenda from, you know, healthcare to the budget to, his hands are tied behind his back. And, you know, the first year in any presidency is kind of your sweet spot to get stuff done. They're going to go on summer recess soon. Once he gets back, they're going to have to try to fund the government. Like, he hasn't gotten as much done as he thought he would.
No. He's eaten some humble pie this year.
And this investigation isn't going away.
But Paul Ryan said today, you know, he's new.
He's new. Yeah, he doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah.
Oh, cute.
I wish there was a way for us to be more uplifting about the situation.
Maybe he'll be impeached.
Where's the silver lining?
I don't know. I don't know. You know, I feel like it's hard not to be cynical, and I've had conversations with friends about how I feel like this happening around us has just created like a low-level anxiety and tension, just interpersonally for everyone. It's hard not to be cynical, and it's hard not to feel a little undone by what's happening in our government.
Somebody named Chad had a great comment, and it's true. It's so true, though. You know, this whole idea of Islamic terrorism, most of these crazy, and they are crazy, ISIS members are killing other Muslims. That's overwhelmingly 95% of the people that they're blowing up are other Muslims, because they have this ideology that unless you are willing to blow other people up, we're going to blow you up. Like, you either have to... And this thing happens in Iraq and in Iran, in Shiite Iran, and even Sunni Iraqis are saying this is horrible. Like, even amongst Middle Eastern, sectarian factions and countries, there's a coming together.
Yeah.
But our president can't even say to the mayor of London, "I'm so sorry. We commend you." It's just like we're becoming a really bad place.
Yeah. I know. Someone saying he should have been impeached is the biggest mistake. I want to take us back to when Clinton was called to be impeached over, lying under oath about sexual impropriety. This is so much bigger. This is so much bigger than that. If we have a president who is in collusion with Russia to interfere with our electoral process, that's impeachable.
Yeah, and Kim, I respect the honesty of the question, and I know you're probably thoughtful about this, but many of the people that I aspire to politically, who are moderates, they're not crazy left-wingers, this issue is way bigger than Watergate.
Yeah.
I mean, the issue is there was a foreign power that tilted our election, and we have an administration that's doing nothing about it.
Yeah.
And best case, they're saying nothing. Worst case, they were part of it. It doesn't get any worse than that. Yeah. I mean, what happened with Watergate was Nixon breaking into the Democratic headquarters and trying to steal secrets, which is bad enough.
Right.
But this is a foreign adversary.
Yeah.
And so I just have trouble with, and I'm not saying he should be impeached or not, we don't know. what he's done, but this is a really big deal.
It's a really big deal. Yeah, huge deal. I mean, I don't really know what is bigger than us not having a fair election process. And, I don't know, maybe, I don't know what can make someone think that's not a big deal. Maybe you haven't traveled to countries or observed countries where they don't have the right to do that. My sons and I were just in Haiti last week, and we went to a museum there in Port-au-Prince, and they had a room dedicated to photos of all of the presidents of Haiti. And you notice that there were presidents in power for 3 months. There were presidents in power for 9 months. Because in Haiti, often the government is thrown out by the people. And often the people vote, and then that person doesn't stay in power. And then they had, Papa Doc, who came in and basically said, like, oh, haha, guess what? We're not doing elections anymore. I'll be the president for my life. This isn't a joke. Like, being a democracy and having the right to peacefully choose our president is a huge honor. Not to get all like patriotic on you, because I'm not typically like that, but at the end of the day, Trump won the presidency. I despise the man, and I honor that he is our president. I am not, we're all talking revolution, but none of us are talking about a political coup where we go in and try to kill him. The fact that our country is so peaceful and democratic is a really big deal. And I think people maybe don't understand the relevance or what an honor it is to live in a country where that is true, because when you look at all of the countries globally, that's very rare. There's not that many where a democracy is assured and peaceful. And so I think, I don't know, I think that there is some privilege and just maybe lack of exposure in someone thinking this isn't a big deal.
Yeah, I think it points to how blind partisanship has made people. Republicans should be outraged, but unfortunately we live in this world where, well, if my guy is the president, he's a Republican, I'm going to put my head in the sand and blame it on the Democrats.
Right.
Respectfully. Someone asks a good question and says, Paul, do you still consider yourself the Republican Party your party? Do you feel like you have a party? And you say you have similar Republican friends. Here's my point of view. Number one, I don't think that one party should have a monopoly on caring for the poor, social justice. I don't think that should be a virtue that one party assumes at all. I think
it shouldn't even be partisan. I think
it shouldn't be partisan.
That shouldn't be a partisan issue. That should be a human care issue.
And so one reason I remain Republican is I want to say to other Republicans and Democrats that I'm a person that cares a lot about human rights, civil rights, social justice, and it shouldn't be that those tenets should not be issues of the left. They should be human issues of the right or the left. And there are other issues as well that I won't go into now, but I will stay in the Republican Party because I believe in some of its tenets. I teach my children personal responsibility, and I ultimately believe that personal responsibility is a better ideal than let someone bail you out or enable you. And I think the Democratic Party, generally speaking, wants to say, we're going to help you out. The Republican Party basically wants to say, hey, get up and get a job. And again, I know there are so many nuances to this that I don't want to get into.
But you're for a smaller government.
I'm for a smaller government, right. I'm for cleaning up welfare. There are certainly people that absolutely can't work, but there are people that are absolutely bilking the system. And I think we need to be careful there. And I believe in moral absolutes, where many of my friends on the left just kind of are more wishy-washy and think that truth is something that we make up ourselves. But the main point is that there are some really good Republicans, and you saw some of them today. Yeah. And that's where I think over time we're going to see more and more Democrats and Republicans actually come together. Mark Warner and Richard Burr today, the two chairs of this committee, were very united.
Yeah,
and they said
I agree.
They said in the beginning, we have great differences, but when it comes to preserving our democracy, we're like this. And I think that we're going to have, there are people like Mitt Romney, you might not agree with him, John McCain, Lindsey Graham. There are some decent Republicans out there that are, you might disagree with their philosophies, but I am not ready to jump ship to the other side yet, because I think the ideals of social justice and caring for the poor, fairness, issues with wage discrepancies are not issues for the left or the right.
And when you talked about the two men who ran the testimony today, being kind of models of Republican professionalism, we have talked a few times about how we're like, I wish Dad would show up. Like, it feels like we're at, like we're having like a brawl without the parents home, and you just want Dad to show up. And I did feel during the testimony today like Dad kind of showed up. The two men who were conducting, I thought they showed bipartisanship. I thought they showed true concern for America, and I appreciated that as two Republicans. Watching that.
Yeah, and I think the greatest silver lining in all of this, and I might have posted something somewhere yesterday about this, but the guys that cranked together this Constitution, I have two thoughts right now, but the first is they were really smart. And today you saw the balance of powers, man.
Yes,
you saw the flipping balance of powers.
You did.
Because no matter what the executive,
that's so true.
no matter what the executive CEO from Manhattan tried to do, when he was very used to having meetings one-on-one and telling people to back off, we have a system of checks and balances where the legislative branch stepped in and said, sorry, but we're here too. We're part of this program.
Yeah.
And it made me feel very comforted as a citizen of this country, whether you're left or right. I mean, and if you're a Republican, just imagine all of this happening to Hillary Clinton. You would feel very good right now if there was a committee put together to investigate some type of allegation against a crime. And so we have to feel blessed as a country that we do have that system. That's what Kristen was saying just a minute ago.
Yeah. Well, look at us. We did find a silver lining. And I do think Trump's presidency is a great example of the checks and balances that our forefathers put in place to avoid fascism in our country. And today was a great example of it. And I think that the overturning of the Muslim ban is another great example of it. And we are seeing that kind of check and balance democracy at work. So, yes, perhaps that's the silver lining we can take away.
And before,
feeling
during the primaries, when Trump got nominated, I used to say, well, it'll be interesting because he's not a CEO. He just can't decide to do shit and it gets done.
Yeah.
There are checks and balances. I want to say one last thing about Paul Ryan's comment, because Paul Ryan, who I'm having so much trouble with, said something like, well, Trump's new, I think you mentioned this earlier, that Trump's kind of new on the job and he doesn't understand these things. And there's a basic implication. It's basically a given that when you become the leader of the free world, that you've read the Constitution.
Right.
And just for Paul Ryan to say, well, he's new, he doesn't understand that he's not supposed to obstruct justice. No. He doesn't understand that he's supposed to go to the Federal Bureau of Investigation's director and tell him to drop a criminal investigation. Like, it is such naivete to give him a pass.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, most seniors in high school would understand that you can't use intimidation. And that's part of why, as a Republican, I struggle.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that was a very weak excuse. I mean, any job you're in, doesn't matter if you're new, you need to know the rules of your own job. And if you don't, you should ask someone. And you should have someone supervising you. Trump needs a babysitter on Twitter and in the office.
That's a good hashtag.
Oh, boy. All right. Anything else for today?
Someone says, do we think he should be impeached? And how do you feel about Pence?
I think Pence feels a little bit dangerous as well. But I do think Pence I don't agree with his ideologies, but he does not seem like a raging narcissist to me. He does not seem like a loose cannon. I don't love some of his, I think he's a little bit backwards personally, but I don't think he is going to, be as bad with foreign relations as Trump is. I don't know. I mean, it's not ideal, but he seems like old school Republican to me.
Yeah, I would say exactly that. I mean, with Trump, I'm literally afraid. I'm not an alarmist, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I think the man's dangerous. I don't have confidence in his ability to be sane and rational, tempered, slow to speak. He makes me nervous. And
Trump has impulse control disorders.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a therapist, you know that he does. And so with Pence, I know many on the left have remarkable differences with some of his social views. in the least, but I don't think he's crazy.
Yeah.
The problem with Pence is it's pretty impossible to imagine that all of this Russia stuff happened without him knowing.
Yeah.
Or without him being in cahoots. But I would put Pence in the category of a very right-wing, socially conservative individual that wouldn't make me feel afraid.
Yeah.
He's a professional. He's a man of dignity, even though you might disagree 100% with him. With Donald Trump, I don't know what to do with him.
I think ideologically, Pence and Trump are probably equal. I mean, I think that Trump is going to play to his party base, and so, when you look at women's rights or any of the other concerns that I think Pence would bring up, he and Trump are probably equal. But then Trump brings a whole different level of issue with his impulse control, with his seemingly, willingness to bait other countries with his alliance to Russia. I think that, and we talked about this at the beginning, Trump is a man who has his own financial interests above that of the country. Now, Pence, I think, has his political interests at the top, and I don't like his political interests, but at least it's not his own financial gain. I mean, he's a long-time old school Republican politician.
And it's just not shady. I mean, Trump won't release his tax returns. I mean, Mike asks a great question. Thanks, Mike. To play devil's advocate, I know this is a very long thing. We're going to be done soon. Didn't the burn get screwed by the Dems? And that's an interesting question. I think it's, and this is one of the issues I had with Hillary. It was that she was such this machine.
Yeah.
And she clearly leveraged relationships and different powers that she had to win the nomination, and never predicted with Sanders' charisma and message that she would be thwarted. I mean, she barely took the nomination from him, and so.
But there were accusations that she was in cahoots with the Democratic National Convention, and the chair of the DNC was fired over that. So, I mean, I want to point out that while I was a Hillary fan up at the end, I was not happy with, I'm not happy with any obstruction of justice, period, And I thought that was very unseemly, and I thought that the firing of the DNC chair was completely, within reason, for the same reasons as I'm concerned with the obstruction of justice here.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, we just need to disagree. The tax returns are being withheld for a reason. If they were, as you say, a piss-poor way of determining financial position, then Trump would have released them. They would reveal relationships, financial relationships business relationships that he would have with Russia. Clearly, it's got to be the reason why he's worked so hard to withhold them.
Yeah.
There's got, and over and over, if we're going to end soon, but the bottom line, guys, is there is a cover-up.
Yeah.
There is a cover-up, there is a cover-up, there is a cover-up happening. And if there wasn't a cover-up, you would have the Trump administration saying, here are our tax returns, come on in, speak to our people, and there is a repeated cover-up.
If there wasn't a cover-up, then this man who ran on Make America Great Again, patriotism, nationalism, would be pissed at what was said today.
Absolutely.
If there was no cover-up, and Comey said Russians were involved in our investigation, then Trump's response would not have been pointing all these places. It would have been, this is bullshit. I agree, this is bullshit.
Yeah, and that's where, if you're a Trump supporter, I so don't understand you, because the whole vibe was, this is the guy that's going to protect our country. This is the guy that puts America first. Watch his inauguration speech. I am going to put America first. You, the citizens, are going to be here. For the first time, you're going to have a defender. And we know for a fact that a foreign adversary hacked our elections, and he is saying not a word.
Right, not a word.
Doesn't seem like protecting to me.
No, it doesn't seem like anything he ran on. And I just, not to be insulting, but I feel like if you're still believing his bullshit, I don't even know what to say.
This has been our longest segment ever, but we just have to say he went and spoke at some evangelical prayer or something at the same very time that this testimony was going on.
Yeah.
And that was just weird.
It's just gross.
Quoting
so
Isaiah
gross.
And...
yeah. All right, we got to wrap this up. we were fired up today. Hit us up with your comments. We want to hear what you guys have to say. And make sure you are following both our Facebook pages, because we will be doing this weekly, and would love to have you join us in the future. Bye.